Okay. Welcome to the Docs Working Group. I will share my screen. This is our work in progress agenda for today. And Derek wrote this, so I'm kind of a little bit
Oh, here he is.
following. Oh, it's Derek here. Derek's here. But we do have an agenda for today. We want to go over some things, and one of the things is goals moving forward. And so he's got a link to it. It's great.
Hello.
Hello. And then the main focus for our goals are going to be the SALT user guide and the SALT install guide, if I can get those words out. And this is actually going really well. I think that we need to just move forward on it. And I was actually asking Derek if we wanted to do some of this today, or if there's anything that we could quickly review, if we should, and just move forward on it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything that's a quick review, if we wanted to do that today or not.
That's right. Well,
When you
Gary
say-
had to send me some notes. He's actually been looking at this like last hour.
Okay, cool. Then maybe we can
some
read
of
it.
those some of those oops. I'm sorry, oops. Some of those with we're talking about the like how to identify the code blocks,
Mhm.
right? And basically if you
This
did
one?
oh, I'm sorry, which
I don't remember which one it was in. but yeah.
map files, yeah,
Oh, was it this one? Okay,
right.
cool. So he's going to review those. Awesome.
I think is well, yeah, go to the I think he actually started, go to the MR for the
Related merge request is number one.
yeah,
Okay,
that
cool.
one there.
Is this the question over some kind of, there was a styling question or some
Yeah,
code
okay,
styling
let's-
question?
Yeah, kind of scroll down here.
Yeah, this one. Where I just said, go ahead and use YAML.
Yeah, but expand
Oh,
my
yeah.
my reply there. Yeah, what was going on? If first the thing was, YAML plus
Plus Jinja.
YAML plus
Yeah.
Jinja, and then that it was bombing, the pre-commit, and I looked it up, and I think that's that's not like a valid code block option. So I thought I'd change it to maybe YAML will work, but then
But that
it
doesn't
still
look good.
failed because there's like a combination of different things, and it didn't look. I guess it looks for, does this look like YAML code?
Oh,
And so so I just
Oh,
set it
see,
to none. And I think
yeah,
the only
if
difference is
you-
like syntax highlighting. So
yeah, the only difference is syntax highlighting, and the example you gave in that box, the code block YAML Ninja that code
Jinja.
block, that's actually, that one there is YAML for certain, but the other
Right.
ones that you're mentioning, because I don't see what they are, I'm not sure, because it will differ. It will totally, because YAML plus Jinja is actually a shortcut for SLS. So whenever you see code block SLS for salt state file, that's the same as YAML plus Jinja. And so
okay, interesting.
yeah. So it's just like, because it's very specific to, it's so specific to often used with salt being Jinja templating with YAML that it's pretty much became synonymous with it, I guess.
Isn't there an SLS type then, or if it's
The SLS type will just be the same as YAML plus Jinja. Yeah. But if you run into weird errors still,
Yeah.
because sometimes it might be expecting like, this is not. Oh, so I see could not lex literal block. Are those literal blocks or code blocks?
No, those were
Those are code block ones.
Those are code blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it would be just seeing whether those, and if they're not, like you said, defaulting to something like none.
Okay.
'Cause it-
Well,
'cause it-
we'll go to changes at the top. I think
Yeah.
that'll show what I've been up to here.
Yeah, you'd have to go find whichever ones are code blocks, because this will be a lot.
It was like 30,
So-
line 36, wasn't it? Was the first one.
Okay, yeah, and then show. Yep.
So it's that.
So
whoop,
that
sorry.
says map.jinja. So that one says it's pure Jinja for the file name. If you scroll up just a little bit more there, Sage, see caption
Right there.
map.jinja. So it might be that it's expecting Jinja only. So if it also fails on Jinja only for file, then I'd say none. But if the file type is .jinja, then code block would be Jinja. If the file type is .sls, then go with SLS, or it works with YAML Jinja too, but SLS is easier shorthand. And then like you said, the defaulting to none, because there's a problem with code examples, is that if your code example is, what do they call that? Where it's been cut off, where it's shortened, truncated. Yeah.
Truncated. Mhm.
If you have a truncated example, then when it goes to parse it, it goes, wait a minute, I don't see everything in the file that I'm expecting to be syntax correct. And so then it could flip out.
Mhm.
So yeah, rule of thumb is if you see the file type reference is .sls, go with .sls. And or YAML plus Jinja. But yeah, if it doesn't,
If it still doesn't work, go with none.
well, it's interesting because it looks like you had to edit it. So does that mean it originally was able to get submitted without that problem?
No, I think it submitted, but it failed pipelines.
Okay. I could take a look at that more later. If you could assign me or list me as a reviewer on that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So for the code block, is there like a standard supported set of what those are? Do you find?
Yeah,
define
I can
those, or is that-
provide. Yeah, there's a public. I can go find the page.
Yeah, because I found some reference and listed, some different types, but there's no like.
So if you go to this page, actually, I'll post this in the documentation channel in Slack workspace, since I really dislike Zoom chat.
It's not my favorite either.
Link to code block syntax types. And this is YAML plus Jinja or SLS right there. Because Sphinx by default uses pigments for syntax highlighting. And so pigments has its own like catalog of, hey, here are the code blocks I support in the way you would reference them. And that example there says short names, YAML plus Jinja, Salt, or SLS. And so that's one. And
Oh, so that's something you set inside Sphinx.
well, Sphinx by default says I'm going to look when I see a code block. I'm going to go grab. But yeah, you're right. I believe there is a way you can say I want to use something other than pigments. I just haven't gone. I haven't strayed from the default before, and so I've generally gone with this list here. Yeah, because let me see about. And then here is the YAML. YAML Lexer, and then I believe there's a Jinja only one. Yeah, which is the same as Django. Yeah, but there's a few links. Otherwise, that page in general, if you're looking at something, because that's where it goes. Oh yeah, I see your code block. You put JSON. So now I'm going to go use my JSON translator to understand how the syntax highlighting should look.
Right.
Yep.
It would just, yeah, compare what category applied to those. Well, if it's like a mix of, if it's like a mix of Jinja and YAML, will it just automatically break?
Well, no, it should, like I said, it will depend. If it's a proper file, YAML plus Jinja, or which will also be known as SLS, will render properly. But if it's like an example snippet where it truncates the rest of what's in it, then when it goes through to say, I'm going to check the syntax, I'll go, this isn't even proper syntax because it's been truncated for like a snippet.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And so if it gets to something like that where it goes to read and then says, whoa, this isn't what it's supposed to be, then like you said, you'd have to default to none. And this is kind of a problem with snippet examples, is that it's hard to properly ensure that either the example has to be modified, or you have to use the none highlighter.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, so those will be all the links. They're in the documentation channel on the Slack workspace. So you'll see YAML, Jinja, SLS, YAML and Jinja, and where that's actually trying to, what it sees as shorthand names that are equivalents. Because it, for example, if it sees Django, it always goes, oh, that's Jinja, because Pigments has set it up so that they're like aliases of each other. But yeah. So that should be a helpful guide for a place to look.
Okay. Oh, Gary, we were talking about like the code block changes that you gave me comments on the 1MR.
Actually, can you provide me the link to that? What's the MR for that? Map files.
Map files, yeah.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
this calendar's murder. Even though the HTML calendar is up to date, the ICS is not, so it's not, didn't prompt me for the meeting.
Oh, I sorry, I had the same problem. I was like, is this just me? Because I noticed my ICS isn't, I just re-imported it too to go, oh, maybe I didn't have the latest, but it's still not there. So I had to go to the HTML calendar to find it. I should have posted the link in the channel. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it was more, yeah, it was more, I didn't get the reminder from Outlook, so.
Oh yeah.
I live and die by those too. And the ICS with the community calendar, like, it is not working. So whatever plugin we're going to use, it better work. I haven't seen it yet.
If it's a plugin that takes,
it.
yeah, if it's a plugin that takes ICS, then you're in the same problem.
I know.
So I hope it doesn't.
I hope it doesn't. I was actually going to ask the contractor that's working on that and be like, do you have this in the dev environment? Because I'm going to go hammer on it and tell you what's wrong. I'm going to go break it. I should. In fact, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go ask him.
And I'm going to copy paste those links into the notes that I got going on.
Okay, so I guess you've answered my question. It depends.
Yeah, but
That's
it's one of
always
those.
the answer.
Yeah, it depends. It's because like I said, could be a problem with the example that it's just not complete and it's a snippet, or B, that you might be using the wrong code block type. And I think I'm going to put, now that I put these links in here, I'm going to move on to the actual planning piece of what are the issues we want to get done? What are the goals we want to achieve? And I have those all in the notes. I suppose I could share my screen here.
Oh yeah, I was sharing, but then I had to put in my access code. So I stopped sharing.
That's great. That's a very good idea.
Right, trying to be a good citizen. Sometimes I forget.
Well, I mean, depending on who's watching, you're a good citizen if you put it in plain text on the
It kind
screen.
of depends. It's like, it's gonna change in a few seconds anyway.
Oh, thank you. Very helpful, Sage. Okay,
Right.
let me share this. Okay. So if you go to Docs Hub, I have and I also mentioned this in that Slack channel for documentation channel, is I uploaded the notes from last meeting. At the tail end of last meeting, we're like, hey, we've talked a lot about big picture, but let's actually get all the tasks outlined, issues created, and issues assigned, and start to move forward on task-driven stuff. Especially because things like the SALT install guide are really easy and straightforward, where it's gonna be, well, I shouldn't say easy and straightforward. You should never say easy or straightforward, I guess. Is that we want to have as detailed issues as possible. And sorry, I can't hear myself think right now. This is the everyday occurrence fun stuff. So, okay. Now, the SALT user guide and the SALT install guide are our main items of focus, because we could have detailed issues in place without having to work with something like the SALT testing suite. And everything that we're putting into the install guide and user guide, those lessons learned are eventually going to be adopted into the SALT core docs too. So I kind of ended up creating a few different headers here in the Markdown notes that are in draft format on Docs Hub for the user guide, the SALT install guide, and then what impacts both repositories, are really all documentation sets. And I mean, I could just walk through them. We have a lot of issues already opened associated with most of these things. Well, we don't, but there are times where the issues are just not currently open. And starting with the SALT user guide, we have that GitLab issue board for tracking that Sage had just brought up a moment ago. And let me get that open here, actually. And this one has stuff that's coming out of the SALT user guide already, which is mostly cleanup work. And it's taking, and this looks like it's filtered on maybe on these tags. This open one's like cycling infinitely, but there's more there. So if I were to go into those issues, I created one for the VirtualBox Docker directions as something that I have, which should be, I don't know if with status to do, and this is something I need to talk, Sage, I suppose, confirmation on how we were doing this.
Well, then I set all this up here.
Okay, yeah. Would you want to walk through, and I'll document the labels, how we're making use of them.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was the one Alicia set up. I guess it was all the DocsJam documents. And just for my own reference, everything was going on, I thought, okay, I'm going to own this. I'm going to make it look nice. So
there's a lot of labels in here. So
okay, so for the all the conversion RST, those were all done. You know, it's been merged, like even, and so it's basically same thing closed, right? The idea is kind of filter on stuff, and so to do means no one's been assigned or no one's started yet, and then working means I'm working on it locally, and then MR submitted is. Then there's an open MR, and then
so wait, for MR submitted, that's open MR is not a separate label. You just said, oh yeah, so to do, MR submitted. I suppose, are these just status?
Right, I guess it's redundant, right? I guess, well, these are, see, there's the issues and then there's the MRs,
Right.
right? So, the issue,
And,
the
and
issue is
sometimes
open,
they're linked. Yeah.
right? Well, yeah, they are linked. Like if you close, if you close the MR, then it resolves the issue.
Okay, so is in progress then because someone is working on it and they just haven't submitted an MR yet? I imagine then a way so someone else doesn't grab a ticket or something.
Right.
Okay.
Although, which is that? Because I was using doing.
Oh,
I guess that's similar, but which one is that in progress?
no, see, yeah, Sage, you can see a lot of these labels are inherited from the Salt stack.
Yeah.
And so and then they're overlapping what we have in Salt user guide. So it'd be a good idea. So I wonder which ones would be best for us to want to ensure, because we also have assigned, and that
Mhm.
sign's good for them knowing like someone's already grabbed this and they're going to do it. But then is that the same as to do?
Well, at the moment, it's just, no, I'm the only one doing this. So, but I'm
Yeah.
sure if there's more people, you want to know who's assigned, and review process might take longer. So,
Right.
yeah, if you just want to generalize this, that'd be great too.
Go ahead, Sage.
Yeah, so the labels tend to be a problem because every group wants to do it their own way.
Mhm.
And we tried to standardize it at the highest level so that then they go top down. So if we do it at what is essentially the org level, the top level at GitLab, then every repo underneath it gets all those labels. And so then they just inherit those status labels. But not everybody wants to use those same status labels. And so you do have the ability like this to then use your own if that's what makes more sense to you. But it is confusing to come in and look at the labels and go, oh, which one are we using? So as we move things around, because we won't always have the Salt stack name, and we look at this, we can change the way that we do it. But I'm fine if it's, for right now, it's a limited number of people. If we just want to say that this is what we're using today and it's what's in the repo labels, that's fine. Totally good. You don't have to use those other ones.
So would it make sense then, do you think, since we're all, I'm looking at just the Salt user guide stuff, would it make sense that we shift these labels up to docs level, since then Salt install guide will get the exact same labels made
Yeah.
available?
It's a manual process, but I can go do that if you want, whatever ones you want. It's only like 3 labels. I can do that.
Yeah, if it's assigned, yeah, because it's interesting, because there's a benefit of using the Salt stack ones, because there's also the branding guide, for example, that's sitting inside the open and not in docs.
Right.
And I want to get things like branding guide specific in there as part of this. So what do people think about having did we use assigned because we initially thought you couldn't be a user? Because when I go into here,
Because if you're
I
not
can-
actually, if you're just a guest, then I can't actually assign it to you.
oh, because I thought that people who were guests were taking ownership of tickets during the.
We brought them up to reporter or other, and going
Oh,
forward, we'll probably stop doing that. But so that's where that came from.
I
It's
see.
because if we just have people that are guests, it's one of the limitations to GitLab that I don't love. But
Okay.
we could.
So that makes sense why we use the assign label then,
Mhm.
in that
It's like-
context. Yeah. Okay. So then I like the idea of so then assigned makes sense. Same with,
I'm gonna put those
we
in
could
there
use
too.
doing instead of in progress, since they'll mean the same. What do people think on that?
It's fine.
I think the higher level up price.
Yeah, use the higher level one alternative. Okay, so assigned doing.
Well, what's like a semantic difference between doing and in progress?
Right.
Yeah,
Is it meaning different in some subtle way, or it seems kind
It's
of
shorter. It's shorter to write is the only
Okay.
reason.
because we're doing
Yeah.
something. Right.
I'm doing, yeah, instead of in progress. It's one
Right.
word as opposed to two. It's a few less letters. That's about it. Sage likes efficiency.
I do like MR submitted. Because then that's like saying it's kind of this.
Look at
it's-
this, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
saying this thing's ready to be taken care of. Because does salt does I haven't done this before, I suppose, with issues. Is there a way to say whether there is a
Like if it has an MR linked with it.
yeah, I guess maybe it doesn't. So then that might make sense to keep that label.
Well,
yeah.
right.
Okay, so assigned, doing, MR submitted. Reviewing's, I like reviewing for someone who is a reviewer, just so that multiple people aren't duplicating each other's work if there's just gonna be one looking at it. And that could be for merge request, MR reviewers. To do is just backlog generic, so I like that.
And then you've
So I
got
almost feel
done
like-
or blocked, and those are all good. Mhm.
Yeah, and then block could be if there's honestly some kind of problem. Maybe it would be kind of like what you're running into, Jim, where you're like, hey, I don't know what to do with this code syntax thing, so I'm kind of stuck. Well, unless that's just going to be included with the merger, the MR review, which it
I think
was.
it's
So,
review, yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like you can use, we tend to use it with things that are like, hey, I'm waiting on something. And so I'm blocked right now with moving forward because I'm waiting for like either something else to get merged, or I'm waiting for somebody to have time, or I don't know, not necessarily, I don't know what to do. That would still usually say in progress or help wanted, but then I know what to do next, but I can't do it.
Okay, so I think we have a good set of which ones we would like to use. Is that assigned, doing, merge request submitted, what was it, reviewing? Yeah, not review, reviewing. I think this set, as long as if we can make this available at least at the docs level or the open level, then we're set for simply making sure which ones are actually assigned to people and what status are they in. And that way boards will be a lot more useful, especially if we make a board at the docs level. Because then the board at the docs level could include everything in Salt user guide and Salt install guide. So if we were to look at docs level here, okay. So it looks like we do have like, I don't know, a general view of things here, development. But this could be improved for just better usage.
You're not signed in, and we could, this one's for development. We could do a different board that's, so if you go up to, just go up a little further and you have a caret where it says development, just down a little.
Oh, and
And so
add a
you
board that's
can-
for docs.
You can just, right.
I like that
So-
idea.
Yeah, we can add separate boards. So we could have a bunch of boards here. We could have like all-inclusive boards for development for docs would be like everything. And then we could have some that are broken out separate and do like, this is for a docs jam, or this is for the working group, or this is for just work that needs to get done. And you can have as many boards as you want, and then they're all driven by labels. And once you're signed in, Derek, you can see how to set up those boards. It's just label driven,
Okay.
and you
that
can
sounds
just drag
great.
and drop them. Yeah.
Yeah, then I'll have that as a task for me to take care of here. It is an all-inclusive docs level
Sure.
board.
I'll
And
have
I'll
to go
just
do the
create this-
labels first at that
Oh
level.
yeah, move the labels up to at least the docs level or the open level. Yeah.
Mhm. And I can do that today.
Okay.
And then I can actually go do this board if you want, because I'll be in there. It'll be simple.
Okay, that'd be awesome, because that'll be our simple way of looking at swim lanes when we have like the next working group is where things at.
Yep.
and then go from there. Okay, cool.
Happy to do that.
I'll put that in the notes. Let's see.
And I'm gonna have to jump off and make somebody else the host.
Go ahead.
Gareth, I'm gonna make you the host.
Gareth, yeah, use his powers.
I don't know if that's a good decision. Power goes to my head.
We'll give you the launch codes. So.
Made you the host. What happened? More. Make the host. Yes. I have to tell it yes. Okay. You guys enjoy the meeting. I'll see you in a bit.
All right, cool. It looks like, well, does anyone have, Jim, it looks like you're already kind of know what you're working on. You have the issues that you're working on and MRs that you would just want to make sure that they get. Oh, which brings up a point I wanted to mention is that before we were talking in the docs channel about how if you and Gary, if you two, you can review each other's work, and I and or Lisa could sort of be like merge power magical people who then can sweep in after and either answer any remaining questions or help get things merged. I'm becoming an SRE at the moment, and so my focus on things is a bit well, my focus before was already all over the place, but now I have a lot more. I have some extra stuff going on, and so if you two find that you're actively working on stuff and could help get each other's content reviewed, or if there's certain things you're not sure of that that another person can take a look at, I'd love to continue to do that so that these don't just get stalled. And that's what I'm concerned about, because I kind of every at the end of each week I'm kind of like, oh crap, that's right, there's some open MRs over there just for some just cleaning up doc stuff, and I'm not, and then I just haven't done it.
Okay, so
So-
Gary, can I just add your name by default when I put another one up? Just
That's fine. I'll try and get to them when I can. If you don't hear from me, you know, within a week or so of you tagging me, poke me. I'll see if I can look at all of your MRs by like maybe this time next week. It's just I got a lot of other stuff going on. Plus I have I owe Gareth some stuff for Delta Proxy and
okay. Well, no hurry on my part. I just want to get them all in the can. Right?
yeah, no, I know. I want to see things move along too, and you've been doing all the heavy lift on this. So
And and you could add me at the same time and just
Okay.
have both of our names on each merge request.
Okay, pass it off to someone else. So. Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
Sweet. All right. And then there's going to be label types that Sage is going to work on in the boards. There is the Salt user guide notes I have in here are pretty much for all issues that are already opened. I need to open one more issue that has to do with the left-hand nav. I don't know if I have an issue around that, because if you noticed, actually, no, I'll share my screen to show that specific piece. So I'm at Salt user guide, looking at the Sphinx built documentation. And so when I'm here, we notice that we used to have a theme that didn't allow for any nesting. And so our only way to nest was to use captions. But if we go to the install guide, we make use of those. And we want to make use of those because as we add more content, let's say we add tutorials, let's say we add any additional content, it would be nice to have this collapsible as opposed to always having everything in the left-hand nav continuously grow. And so I wanted to have pretty much open an issue that was just going to be evaluate like a better way maybe to have that there. Would anyone like to be involved in the discussion on that ticket, or at least would anyone want to be on the merge request review for that if I submitted MR for it?
I can take a look at it if you want to tag me.
Okay, we'll do. Okay. That's mostly everything for the Salt user guide at the moment, is that the tickets are pretty much there. Of course, there's some other stuff we'll go over in a moment. Now the Salt install guide. Oh yeah, I should get back to sharing my screen there. Second. Okay. All right. Salt install guide. The good thing about the Salt install guide is there are a few placeholders already there, including tickets that exist. I could probably do a better job of linking the tickets directly within them to make it even more straightforward. Because I think I want to do that. If we look at the supported operating systems, this has a to-do, and this is the habit that I'm taking, is every time I have an action item, I want to pretty much have a to-do rendered on the page. And I think the next step I could do is even include the issue associated with this. Because for those of you who've had to go look at this thing, we have a PDF posted on the WordPress site, and it's hard to find. It's unlisted. You kind of have to find it practically through discussion channels or because you bookmarked it. And this is very difficult to update because the source is sitting in some kind of Word type document. So if this was an RST, what's that?
We updated too. I think the versions of Fedora are both end of life.
Yeah, and there's Ubuntu 16.04 here. We mentioned like 2008 for Windows Server. This isn't good.
Yeah.
So that all has to be updated, and it's already linked to here, which makes it easy. It's similar to how we were converting docs content during the docs jam, and so we already have issues open for those. I could probably just simply take this issue and put it in the to-do, like the associated ones, because we need to do the same. I need to do the same with installation documentation for various operating systems. I also have an open merge request right now that is getting the native minion install documentation in place because of how these are being open sourced, or at least the docs are, and eventually the rest of it will be. And so I have in my preview branch here, I have the main operating systems that we list on something like repo.saltproject.io. I have the native minion categories. So far, I just have Solaris in place in this merge request. But I'm thinking that's probably what I'm going to do is get each of these placeholder pages in place and then links to their appropriate issues. That way they're going to all be able to appear in boards and will be really easy to be assigned out. And what's actually going to be here is going to be pretty easy to figure out too, because we have a list of platform specific. There's platform specific stuff that we support out of our own repo, like repo.saltproject.io. So we have these ones that we're creating and making available. But then we have other ones listed in the docs like Gentoo and OpenBSD that we don't have in here. And so they'd be like in a different, maybe a different drop down menu, similar to what I'm doing with the native minions. So because that means it's kind of community provided directions or maintainer provided directions, such as, let's say, the Debian package maintainer, if they're having, I don't know. Well, no, we provide Debian packages, so I don't know, some other Arch Linux perhaps or something. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking for this side of things. It's going to be as straightforward as possible because it'll be fully documented. That way, anyone who joins the working group later on, or anyone who's not even part of the working group, has a simple path forward, especially if they were just part of a docs jam. So that's what I'm doing with the install guide, with the prep, since we're talking about how we wanted to make sure we started getting all these issues in place as opposed to just talking about them high level. These sections of my notes are already talking about what I just said. I was going to talk to Frode, who is part of our QA release process. And I want to make sure that our install guide is using code snippets in a way that he can make use of an automation. So I want to make sure that if he's going to, let's say there's a new release coming out, and he just wants to make use of the directions we already have in place. I want to get this repository set up in the best way possible. And I think to do that, and I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on this, is that when I was originally doing the Salt user guide, I had a separate subdirectory in here that was for all the code samples. And then they all were literal includes of the files instead of embedded in the RST themselves. Because if you do that, that means someone could, let's say, git clone the repo, and then they can simply go into that code file, that code directory, and run installations like commands. That seemed to be the best way, as opposed to then having like Frode or someone else create their own custom scraper scripts, that if they could simply go, oh, you already have a directory with all the commands I'd use in something if I was installing for Fedora. No, if I was installing for Debian, if I was installing for etc. Because that's something we currently have to manually test. I'm gonna probably get that done and modify the contributing guide that's here, but I don't want to do that necessarily on my own, or I don't want to say, hey, I've come up with this idea, now you all got to use it. So would anyone want to be involved in if I submit a merge request as an example for it, like, hey, here's an example of the Ubuntu installation docs, and here are where it's doing the literal includes. Would anyone who would like to be on that MR to see if, hey, is this, I don't want to overcomplicate it. So if you go into it and go, I have no idea how this works, I want to make sure it's properly documented in the contributing guide, for example. But yeah, what are people's thoughts on that? Who would like? Oh, go ahead.
I think it's a fantastic idea, because then you don't have to worry about parsing RST to get at code samples. My only concern is we definitely need a way to be able to override for specific examples, because there may be stuff that's, we either can't test initially, or it's just not like it's a snippet, right? So may not be complete enough to be testable.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Is that the good thing about the installation docs is that if we were saying, let's grab what's that repo, and let's go what they have on Ubuntu. Right now, this is what we have is here's your command to get the repository set up. Here are all your apt install options available. And actually, some of these we may not even need anymore. I don't even know if we need to restart services manually. But the cool thing about this part is, because you're right, is it's going to mean one of two things. Is one, we're going to have to figure out how to customize it a little further, or does that mean that our directions have to be more detailed, or do we have to be more intentional in how we are documenting installation? Because if we're installing it well enough for a human to do it, then is it well enough for a automated system to do it? And if we have caveats, like let's say in the salt install guide, there's this, oh, if you run into this problem, make sure you run this command. Maybe those snippets are just not snippets targeted by our CI tooling. Maybe it's like only make use of a particular subset. So yeah, I would definitely like to include you, Gary, then as like for review of it, because
Sure.
if you end up taking a look and you go, hey, maybe you're not thinking about this, that'd be awesome. I'm going to add Frode on there too, since he'd be the one actually making use of them. Cool. Create issue. MR example. Add Gary Frode for review. I know I'm volunteering for Frode. He's not even here, but I like doing that. Cool. I think that's like the main targeted items that are specific to those repos before I get into the overlapping ones, some of which we already have issues for. And by the way, after I go through this, I just want to make sure everyone has issues assigned for those who want to be involved or feel like they don't have an issue yet assigned to them. But yeah, here's the overlapping stuff. One is that Sphinx version 4 just recently came out. Now I haven't really done much testing with it, so I don't know do our current extensions like break? Does it properly format? That kind of thing. So Sphinx version 4 does need to be tested. It might actually be automatically tested if we're not pinning a Sphinx version and in your merge requests. Like, I don't know. I don't know if we're actually pinning. So we're just saying greater than or equal to. So at least this is install guide, so it might be different in user guide. Yeah, so you might be fine. If you run into an error suddenly that you weren't expecting, where Sphinx is trying to build HTML out, it could be a version specific problem, and you could reach out to me if that seems to be the case. But if all is well, because thankfully we're pretty limited in the extensions we're using and in the stuff that we're doing, that I don't think I don't imagine Sphinx 4 is going to cause us problems. So cool thing is Sphinx has an extra piece, a feature that I want to make use of in our repos, which before, if you wanted to have a specific logo and icon to your doc set, you had to copy it to your repos directly, or you had to have your CI tooling go and download the logos to make use of. But they actually added a feature that said, hey, now you can simply put a URL to the logo and a URL to the icon, which is something we've wanted to do long-term anyway. We've actually created a branding guide that has all of our logos in it and our icons in it. If it doesn't have the icons in it, I gotta make sure they're including I have to put pop in, item, and all those logos in there too, because I at one point got a hold of them. So that's a cool thing with version 4 of Sphinx, is we want to remove any locally stored static logo files that should instead be pulled from like a central repo that is, here's the Salt project logos, so that if we ever wanted to update a logo, we'd rather update it in the repo to a new logo and then have all of the repos that build from it use the new logo, as opposed to us going, oh crap, we have to update a logo within 20 or more repos. So that's one thing. Sphinx 4 is confirming, are the merge requests running with Sphinx 4, does it seem? Or if I'm using Nox locally, is it hitting with Sphinx 4? And does it work? And then I want to create an issue for also take advantage of one feature. I'll say Derek, be third person about it. And I want to make sure that I actually create an issue for URL targeted logos icons. That'll be Derek. All right. I don't know if anyone else has heard of any features from Sphinx 4 that they've otherwise been like, oh, I've heard there's going to be this thing. I need to actually honestly go look through the change log just to see, are there any cool features? So let me have that there too. Take a look at the new features, like, I don't know, between version 3 and version 4 of Sphinx. And create issues for features of interest. I could do that. Sphinx has an interesting way of doing their change logging features. So sometimes it's hard to know like what even has been added across all of them unless you go and look directly at the files in their source code repos to look at it. Okay. Salt style guide improvements. There's the tooling, there's the veil testing that you were doing, Jim. That seems like we could do some follow-up, which would be around getting our own style guide, at least a basic style guide file. And I'm thinking that there's an issue that's too big, which is this one. This issue should honestly be split into a bunch of other issues so that they're proper tasks that people can go and look at. Like for example, there's Ally, a CLI tool to just scan the HTML output for accessibility stuff. Same with HTML proofer for other things. I think I'm going to split this out into more issues so that they're specific to each of these tools, so that Veil has its own. The smart quotes thing. Each of these need to just be their own. They're too separate. So this is great as like a like main. I don't know if I'd call it an epic, but a higher level ticket that maybe the others reference.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm not, so, you know, I already know that way, Jim, we could put like the notes we had. I could like put the notes that you have in here on all the Veil stuff.
Okay, that'd be great.
And into the Veil specific issue, just so it's documented somewhere, kind of when you get to it kind of thing, or if someone else wants to pick up the Veil work.
Well, I'm happy to keep pursuing it. It's interesting. And
Sweet.
yeah, I was gonna start maybe writing my own little documentation, just something to put on a blog, or
Yeah.
because as we say, I'll blog about what you're learning. So yeah, I'll it'd be great to have help, but yeah, I'll play around with that, because it's really interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I remember there's one thing that I saw that you showed me that was kind of surprising, where they seem to not. They say they support RST, but it's really like it
converts it to HTML first and then scans the HTML.
Yeah, they tell you to install DocuTools. That's their support.
Which comes with Sphinx, so you'll be set if you have that all there.
Yeah, but then you can so that's a bigger issue, do the HTML or do the raw RST, but they'll be they'll be worth looking into, because some things like making sure that if you have inline code, use double back quotes instead of colon code.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the inline. Okay, see, that's interesting. You're right.
Yeah, raw RST stuff.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Does Veil then? Does that mean that the Veil style guide, custom style guide stuff technically doesn't support raw RST, and that you'd have to make other custom code for that?
Well, what you can do is
or look at what
you can trick it and say anything that's RST, .rst, just treat it as if it were text.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, this is a text, just a text file,
Right.
like
so
plain
just-
text. Okay.
Yeah, and then you can parse for that kind of stuff.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. Yeah, so I'll make sure Vails, because it's honestly it's its own project. It should be its own issue instead of part of that other issue.
Okay, I'll try to write up what I know so far. Just for
Yeah, and if you do, when you do, if you do a blog post, definitely in the issue, like comments, link out to your blog post. Be
Okay,
kind of
yeah.
cool to just have that easily there. Cool. The other things I have listed here are really the same items from that style guide issue we were just looking at. And there's a smart quotes autocorrection thing I've had to do across repos, because if someone is a Windows based contributor, well, I guess funky things could happen. I've seen in some other repositories of different projects that because they were mixing smart quotes with regular quotes, it was something weird was happening. I'm not quite sure what it was. And I have this little Python script that I just pretty much ran with pre-commit calls, but I wanted to make that more portable, something that maybe was its own pre-commit hook, where generally when you have a hook, you can just put in the pre-commit config file. Here's your next one, and it could just simply say, here's the repo endpoint, here's the version, call this smart quote replace, and then it would just do a simple, it's pretty much a Python replace file, like replace calls against the smart quotes with regular single tick or double. So that's everything that was the brain dump of these are the issues that need to be turned into issues and assigned to people and made when it comes to, hey, let's get these done so that then we can start getting these published to the saltproject.io somewhere, which will involve discussions that I'd like to have with Bryce. But if either of you have seen, oh crap, we're actually already at top of the hour, man. So I'm going to make sure that more issues are made. If you don't have an issue assigned, issues should be there. Reach out to me in the documentation channel if you're just wanting someone to give you an issue. And I'm going to be actually making the rest that don't exist. All right. So everyone have a good rest of your day, and I'll post the minutes this time, like before end of day. All right. Okay.
Awesome.
Have a good one, everybody.